The problem with Dragon's Den. I made a video yesterday just touching on this because I've been watching it recently. As I don't watch television. My name's Toddy, I make daily videos. Launching 100 startups in 1,000 days. The 4 a.m. club's going to be one of the first ones. And we did it today. We woke up. We found the problem with the alarm. We had the backup phone alarm. And of course, we didn't need it. But yeah, got the work done, got the yoga done. Feeling good. Treating myself to a tonic and lime. We make videos on life, business. And I just Googled last night. I was thinking a bit more about the Dragon's Den and a bit more about a better format for a business show. I think I've got some ideas brewing, which I'll share on maybe a bit on this video, maybe on some future videos. But I just, I Googled it, and this guy called Guy Blasky got a growth secrets blog, and he's put the 7 reasons why Dragon's Den has had its day and needs replacing. He opens with, there's a new series of Dragon's Den on TV, but very little has changed. Very little has changed in the 16 years that it's been on the TV. Dragon's Den infuriates me. Ooh. It is probably the most high-profile business show on TV. It should be about encouraging and championing on entrepreneurship. It should be about how lucky and privileged the dragons are to get to meet driven, ambitious people at the start of the journeys, and not about how lucky the entrepreneurs are to be in a room with 5 people rifling through their piles of cash. Spicy. Here are 7 reasons why the concept is broken. The way companies are valued on Dragon's Den is simply wrong. It normally works something like this. Entrepreneur. I value my company at 500k and I want 100k investment. Let's assume no negotiation to make this easier in brackets. Dragon, I will invest 100k for 20% of the company. Everyone thinks this is right because 100k is 20% of 500,000. 100,000 is 20% of 500,000, but it's wrong. It would be right if the dragon was buying the equity from the entrepreneur and the entrepreneur was keeping the cash, but they are not. The money goes into the company, not to the entrepreneur. This means if you start with a valuation of 500,000, the dragon puts in 100,000, the company's now worth 600,000. The dragon's share is equal to the amount of money that they put in. This means that if the dragon gets 16% of the company, 100k is 16% of 600. In technical terms, this is the difference between a pre-money valuation and a post-money valuation. I accept that this might make the TV show confusing, but it is only confusing because the show has effectively taught the nation badly. Although this is arguably a technicality, with the rise of crowdfunding, it would be great to have a show that explained properly how investment works. But this is true. Like if you owned a company, see Dana White had recently sold a bit of MMA off to somebody. Because if he owns, say, if you own 100% of a company and then you want to sell half of that to somebody else, you would be giving up your share of the company. So if the company was worth 100,000, you would be selling half of it for 50,000. That's what you'd agreed. That 50,000 wouldn't go into the company. It would go into your pocket because you own that company. That's an asset of yours. You're choosing to sell half of it. So that's your money. So this is true. The money goes into the company a lot of the time. A lot of the time, these entrepreneurs are looking to raise money. So instantly, if their 100,000 goes into the company is instantly worth more than it was valued in the negotiations around the table in the show. So I agree with that. And it's not really showing, it's a business show and you can learn things from it. And I have enjoyed the show over the years. But I just thought it'd be interesting to go through this article and see. So next point, profitability of small companies. You know the questions, what's your turnover, what's your profit, etc. And this is what the companies are judged on. Why is that wrong, you may ask? Aren't companies supposed to make profit? Well, the answer depends on what kind of companies you're looking at, what the size of the company is, and what the goal of the company is. If you have a lifestyle business to create an income for you and your family to live off and it turns over 500,000, then yes, you should be making a profit and then paying some of the profit to yourself in dividends to fund your lifestyle. That's the point of it. Fair enough. If you're running a 500,000 turnover business and you're looking for investment, then no, you should not be making a net profit really, because you might be in the growth stage, I guess he's going to say. Any net profit should be put back into the business to grow the business. Why would you be asking for somebody else to put money into the business if you haven't already reinvested the company's profits? A lot of the time, these dragons want to see companies that are growing. They're always looking at the past kind of 3 years roughly, turnover, gross profit, net profit. And then the net gross profit margins and the net profit margins. You can work out a lot from that and see the growth and see what's going on. But yeah, if you're still in a growth phase, you don't want to be taking the money out as dividends, and you want to be reinvesting that into growing the company, which will therefore make the net profit look a lot lower. Companies should have a good gross profit to show that they're scalable, but not a net profit. So yeah, the gross profit, as you grow, the margin in the gross profit should increase, but the net profit may not increase and may go down. And they don't really talk about that so much. They're quite focused on the net profit, I would say, a lot of the time. There are possible exceptions, such as an investment from cash flow or capital expenditure, but this rarely comes up on Dragon's Den. And if you have a profitable company that needs money for cash flow or capital expenditure, there are many other options you should look at before giving away equity. So a lot of times, if it's just money, then you don't really need to give away equity. You can get bridging loans, you can get capital investment at different rates to fund your growth, and then you still own 100% of the company, don't you? Number 3, deal structure. From memory, it was James Caan who first offered entrepreneurs some of their equity back after they pay back their money. Normally, it goes something like this. Entrepreneur, I'll give you 10% of my company for 50K. Dragon 1, I'll take 15% of your company for 15K, 5% more, for 50K. Dragon 2, competing, I'll take 15% of your company for 50K, but drop down to 10 if I get my money back in 2 years. Now, this is interesting because one of the episodes I saw last night, I think it was either on 2 episodes back to back. I saw this twice, basically, over an episode or 2 last night. And it all seems quite good for the entrepreneur who's presenting in front of the dragon, and good for the dragon, but it really is a lot better for the dragon. And here's why. I think I'll read his and then I'll explain my take on it. Does anyone ever take a minute to think what this means? Well, we are now. What's your name, Guy? Firstly, it means that the company will have to have enough free cash to pay back 50K within 2 years. If that was possible, it shouldn't need the investment in the first place, and the dragon should know this. Secondly, the dragon gets 100% of investment cash back in 2 years and keeps 10% of the entrepreneur's company, where essentially he's getting it for free. It's a massive con. Yeah, I agree. There was a tech company last night that got investment from Peter Jones, and they wanted 100,000 for 15%, and he ended up agreeing to 12.5% if he got his money back in a couple of years. And these guys' net profit wasn't massive. They were making a net profit, but that largely means that, if it was in a couple of years, some of these they say in a year or 2. So that means the companies, all the net profits, basically going to just go all the way back to the dragon and prioritize them. So their equity then goes down, and then they've basically got all their money back and they've still got a share. So it means they're getting the money out really quickly and then reducing their risk massively. There was another one as well, I think Sarah, with a guy that was doing football shirts. Also, it was a higher risk investment, but still, I think it was 2 years. If she got her money back, I think it was 50,000. And the guy was not making so much profit. So that's basically going to be he's going to be making no profits. It's just going to be going back to the investor. So I think it's a good point. It's a good point. And something that, my idea for a business show is where it's just one format. There's none of this negotiation. It's either a yes or a no, then a 50-50 split, and somebody get a 5-minute presentation. It's in motion anyway. So, number 4, catching people out. The dragons seem to revel in catching people out, especially with their numbers. At the same time, they say they should get disproportionately higher equity for their cash than other investors because they are there to help. This is a ridiculous contradiction. The people who you can catch out are the people who most need the help. The people who have all the answers are the people that need the least help. Plus, does good memory and mental arithmetic make you good at business? No. I get that it wouldn't make great TV for the entrepreneurs to be opening spreadsheets on their laptops to answer the questions. But in real life, in real business, you have access to tons of data. And it's not the person who memorizes it the best who's likely to be more successful. It's the person that can read, analyze, and understand it. Yeah, it's true. They do get a bit bummed out with the numbers a lot of the time. And a lot of business people, you do have to know the numbers, but it's not about the numbers. You don't have to be an accountant. You just have to. Deborah Meaden said a good quote. You don't have to be an accountant, but you need to know the cogs and all the numbers, how they do work. So I think it's like you don't need to know everything, and I think they are a bit harsh sometimes on some of the numbers. But you need to know how the numbers are working in the business and to validate the idea and to validate the investment or the growth plan. The value of contacts next. I've managed to get products listed on some of the top retailers in the UK, Sainsbury's, Tesco, Waitrose, Pets at Home. I've never done this without a high-level contacts. My team and I have done this by developing products that we know consumers want, working out where they should be, finding the right buyer at the right time. Okay, I agree. I mean, he's saying like, yeah, what is the relevance of the contact? And I'm sure it is a lot, but I'm also sure that it's possible to do it without them. But I think with them, you're giving away equity in return for their contacts, but at the speed through the door, the process. It could just be a phone call with them to get a meeting the next week or straight on the shelves. Whereas, going through the traditional route, definitely completely possible, but you're going to have to work harder and it will take more time. So I kind of agree with that, but it's I do see the merit in opening up their contact book to a lot of these people as suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, marketers. One point that's not in here, which I have heard somewhere else, is a lot of, I guess it's linked to the last point. Let's save it for that. The Dragon's Time, number 6, I think. The big sell of the show is getting a dragon on board, but how much time do you really get from them? Take Tej Lavani as an example. He runs Vitabiotics with a turnover of 300 million. His website lists 10 investments on top of this. It also lists 8 charities, media appearances. How much time could he possibly have to dedicate to a small company in which he has a minority investment? And if the pitch from the Dragons is about how much help and time they get to give, why do we never see this part of the investment? Like how much time? That would be interesting, actually. It's like, well, how many times are we going to meet? How many calls are we going to have? How much actual time and energy are we going to have from you for this? That's all that's left open. We know what equity the entrepreneur's giving to the Dragon, but how much time are the entrepreneurs getting from the Dragon? How much input, how much insight, how many of their contacts? How quickly is this going to take? So it would be nice to see that. And it would be nice if I was on there as the entrepreneur. I would be like, well, how much time am I going to get? How could define what I'm going to get from you? And some of them have got a bit shirty, I've seen in the past, where they're like, whoa, you're asking me that. It's like, well, they're not being rude, but the Dragons have it's come across as rude to them when, yeah, it's a relevant question. If you get an investment, you see them once a year, what's the point? So, last one. Brands just use the show for PR. From my understanding, a high proportion of deals done on the show don't actually go through. I've heard that too. It's that maybe under half of them go through. It's normal that I've got something to add to that. It's normal that some would fall apart due to due diligence, but that doesn't seem to be the reason. I know of one entrepreneur who went on the show, accepted investment offers, then turned them down off air and did more sales on his website the day the show aired than he was offered by the Dragons and kept his equity. I've seen plenty of others turn up on crowdfunding platforms like Seeders and Crowdcube, using the publicity from the show to get crowd investments. I think that's a great thing. Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, you've got to, you start a business, you've got to get your name out there any way you can. I think it's great for entrepreneurs, but why not build it into the show? It would make a far better show. It would be more honest. Yeah, definitely. And even they could just like, look, you would be better crowdfunding. Let's help you and show you the journey. They do some follow-up shows here and there, but they're very far and few in between. And yeah, they don't really show a lot of them. Dragon's Den is the X factor of the TV world, where the judges hold the power and often belittle the contestants. We need a business show that is the voice, where the talent has more power and where those with experience are mentors, not judges, there to help the next generation of entrepreneurs. Yeah, love that. Also, what was my point I was going to add? Yeah, in the deal making, they make the deal as a handshake on the show, but then they've got to go away and there's a big like legal due diligence that they've got to check everything. But apparently the contracts from the Dragons, now I don't know if this is true, this is just things I've heard and picked up, not from here but just over time, that a lot of the time the contracts are what's the word, quite demanding in the way that they would have their own in-house services, marketing, sales, accounts, and things like that, which the entrepreneurs have to agree to use and agree to pay. So the Dragons have got other services around the investment for that company. So they kind of bring them in because they all have offices with multiple companies in, and then they'll have centralized, say, the accounting, the marketing, branding, design, graphics, and all this stuff. So that would be all. What they're saying is, will you come on board and pay us loads of money for all of these things and you don't go anywhere else? Which could be a good thing because hopefully they've got it all worked out and stuff. But then it might not be a good thing. You might be tied into something that you don't necessarily want to be tied into. You might like doing some of the graphic stuff or some of the accounts. It's yeah, a little bit. It's interesting. So yeah, just some thoughts on dragons then, because love business. We're trying to flex and test as many different online business models, motives, and the money models for business. Combine all those into business blueprints, giving them all away on non-conformity blueprints, and yeah, I just love business. So it's been nice to watch this show and just have a little bit of a break in the evening. And yeah, it just got my mind thinking about a potentially new format and just the problems with the current format. And yeah, I largely agree with this article. So yeah,